Colonel John Watts de Peyster, Jr., born on the 2nd of December, 1841, died on the 12th of April, 1873, buried at St. Paul's in Trinity Parish, Tivoli. The large stone de Peyster vault is just behind the church. Civil War veteran. When the Civil War erupted, many residents of Tivoli enlisted in the Union cause. 3 sons of General John Watts de Peyster and Estelle Livingston de Peyster served, one of whom was John Watts de Peyster, Jr. De Peyster, Jr. began the war as a major in the 1st New York Volunteer Artillery. His first taste of action came at the Battle of Williamsburg, Virginia, in May 1862, where he served as an aide to his cousin, Major General Philip Kearny. Later contracting the so-called James River fever, one of a host of formerly undiagnosed diseases that plagued military camps on both sides of the war, de Peyster recovered just in time to participate in the Battle of Chancellorsville in May 1863. A precursor to the Gettysburg Campaign, this confrontation in northern Virginia pitted the Union Army of the Potomac against the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia. The climax of the battle came when the Confederate troops executed a roundabout march that struck the flank of the Federal force, nearly routing the Union troops. During this action, de Peyster, Jr. served as Chief of Artillery for the 2nd Division of the 6th Corps of the Army of the Potomac. His coolness under fire and able directions of the cannons under his command helped to save that portion of the Union Army from destruction. Despite de Peyster's bravery, the Army of the Potomac was forced to withdraw, granting Robert E. Lee the opportunity to lead his Confederate troops into Maryland and on to Pennsylvania. For his outstanding service, de Peyster, Jr. received the brevet, or temporary, rank of colonel. Like many men who participated in battles during the Civil War, de Peyster left the conflict with health complications that would foreshorten his life. Having failed to make a complete recovery from the James River fever and suffering a concussion at the Battle of Chancellorsville, de Peyster Jr. was forced to resign from the Army in 1864. He spent his remaining years struggling against the long-term effects of those experiences, finally passing away on April 12, 1873, at a family home in New York City. He was 31 years old, unmarried, and had spent the preceding months confined to his bed, suffering from tuberculosis. Tragic early death was a common occurrence in the family at that time. His younger sister Maria had died at age 5 in 1857, and his younger brother Frederick de Peyster would pass away in 1874, also due to complications from his own service in the Civil War. De Peyster Jr. spent the years prior to his death touring the globe in search of a cure for his chronic respiratory complaints, being one of the first American tourists to visit Japan. His father ensured that John Watts de Peyster Jr.'s services and achievements would be remembered through multiple monuments. In 1881, the elder de Peyster published a book titled Local Memorials Relating to the de Peyster and Watts and Affiliated Families Connected with Red Hook Township, Dutchess County, State of New York. In it, he described a white marble obelisk dedicated to his son, recording the brevet colonel's service during the war. A marble tablet dedicated to de Peyster, Jr. stands behind St. Paul's Church against the chancel wall, lauding his patriotic service and sacrifice. These monuments and many laudatory statements published by his comrades after his death ensure that John Watts de Peyster, Jr. will be remembered as a man who demonstrated the same pluck in the battle for life as when fighting for his country.